welcome back to Beyond the Screen, the Family Connection podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Samantha Hayes, educator, parent, and founder of Beyond the Screen Families. Today we have two, not one, but two special guests with us, Liz and Erin from the Math Happiness Project. These ladies have both earned their doctorates. They are former teachers, are passionate about cultivating math excitement in others, and yes, they are also mamas too. Welcome, Erin and Liz.
Hi, we're so
Hi,
happy to be here.
thanks for having us.
So good to have you here. I love watching everything that you post on Instagram and just really like cultivating that math love, especially because a lot of people don't love math. So, can you share a little bit about the Math Happiness Project? What it is, why you started it, all of those details in case people haven't followed you.
Yeah, so I'm Erin, Liz. We met doing our doctorates together, and we were just having a lot of similar conversations. We had friends with young kids who would kind of come to us and say, "Oh, I don't understand this new math my kids are doing. Can you help me with that?" Or we would learn something new that we were teachers, so we knew some of these things, but you still, new research is always coming out, and we'd be like, "Oh, we want our friends with kids to know this information. All people deserve this information." And then another layer up top of that was we worked with a lot of pre-service teachers who had a lot of math anxiety. So they're coming to us, we're preparing them to teach everyone's children, and they feel uncomfortable and anxious about teaching math. And they share these, experiences they've had, tears at the kitchen table. A lot of you listening right now that might resonate with you. That might have been your experience. And so we really thought, okay, we want everyone to have access to the same information we have about how math can be joyful, it can be happy, and then also to help people understand these new math topics that can really, they're very powerful and do take away a lot of stress. But if they're new to you, that might add another layer of anxiety. So we want to take that layer of anxiety away from adults who are really wanting to help their children, but just don't know the best way to do that because it's not how they learned.
I was just going to add on to a little bit, in our roles at the university, we support people who are becoming teachers, right? Elementary through middle school. But the reality is, I can't remember the exact percent, but kids spend so much more time at home than they do at schools, even though it
Mm.
doesn't feel like it. And so I really think it's important to hit there as well. But there's so much time and so many things we can do without it feeling like we're extending school into the home so that kids can have that more positive mathematical experience and understand math better. And so we kind of want to hit it from both directions.
I love that. The well-rounded math application.
There we go.
So people might be like hearing math happiness, right? And being like, how can I be happy with math? What's your definition of math happiness?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, they're probably like, those two do not go
Yeah.
together. And that's part of the problem, right? So, at the bare minimum, it's not feeling anxiety or dread or discomfort when someone says math. Even with my adult friends, when I was working on my PhD in math education, they're like, math, oh God. And I'm like, no, no. So, at the bare minimum, we don't want people to have that negative association, but also, we truly believe it can go beyond just taking away a negative association because when you really engage in mathematics, true mathematics, from a place of understanding rather than just copying teachers' directions on the board and hoping you remember it
Mhm.
correctly, we do see kids dig into it. They see the beauty in math. They enjoy math. And that's, I think, the place that we've both gotten to with math, and we've seen our students get to with math. And we want that opportunity for everybody to not just see math as a subject they have to make it through in school, but to see it as a fun place to think about things and a great place to develop critical thinking skills.
I think it's worth highlighting. I have always loved math. I actually briefly worked as a financial analyst because I loved math so much. But that's not Liz's story, and
No.
so I don't want anyone listening to think this I'm done listening. This it doesn't resonate with me because I'm not a math person, which we will address hopefully at some point in the podcast. But you never hear anybody say I'm not a reading person. Like that's just not part of the vernacular, and so I think it's important for people to know.
Yeah, Erin, I should mention that. So not that I hated math as a kid, I did math, it was fine. And then by the time I got to high school, I was kind of like, whatever. Not gonna lie, I got to college and I took the bare minimum one required math class. And I was like, great, don't have to take more math. Sounds good. Um, but then I became a teacher And I started learning more things about math and thinking about math differently. And I realized what I had been doing all those years was not math. It was just repeating steps someone else told me to do. And so it fundamentally shifted how I think about math. And so Erin's point is a really important one. Even if you're listening to this and you're like, I am not a math person, that's probably because of the type of math that was done to you in school. And you are a math person because everybody is a math person. All human beings are born mathematical.
Right. And I love you said a small and I like small word choice there done to you at school,
Yeah.
like small intentional word choice
Mm-hmm.
in relationship to mathematics.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, it's true. A lot of people, and it's not the teacher's fault inherently, right? They were taught math
Yeah.
poorly, and we replicate how we're taught frequently. And so they unfortunately are not given the professional development opportunities that they need to shift what they're doing. They're doing the best they can.
Yes.
Then we have this cycle repeating of unfortunately not great math instruction in our country
Mhm.
overall. There are wonderful examples out there, of course. I'm not saying all teachers are doing a bad job by any means. But just overall, I don't think teachers in this country have been set up for success when teaching mathematics. And that means that learners are not set up for success when learning mathematics.
I think, well, and I just from my own understanding and work in higher ed, the elementary, the foundational spot we're taught, like where math starts, elementary educators, I think it's usually like one or two classes max.
That was my teacher prep program. In the program we teach in, it's 3, which is amazing.
We have it's a
Wildly
luxury.
atypical.
Yes.
Wildly atypical.
When I was in school, the university I was at required triple minors of elementary educators, and it had to be science and it had to be math, and then you got to pick your third one. They're not doing that anymore, and I'm always like, what a disservice. Like that was awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So one thing that I love that you guys do is it's always math in real life, right? You said as humans, we are math people. Like it's not, I'm not a math person. We are math people as humans. And, in real life, math is everywhere.
Yeah.
What role do you see that real world math experiences in children's learning, in their confidence? Like, how does that play a role?
I mean, those real world experiences are huge, and less from that kind of typical, well, when you're older and you're in the grocery store, you'll need to do this, but more just in that, I mean, the world is mathematical, right? It just inherently is. And a lot of it has to do with whether or not we notice that math and we lean into that math to kind of support our kids. And when kids see math as only something that happens in the school building, perhaps on the whiteboard or on a worksheet, or nowadays on an app on a computer, they disconnect from math more. They don't see it as part of themselves. They don't see themselves as doers of mathematics. They see themselves as, I have to do this subject for school. And so one of our goals is to help families bring it outside of that so they can see where math is, because I think that's really powerful for kids. I think it makes math more interesting. And I think it deepens their understanding as well.
Just getting back to, you asked us what we thought math happiness was. I think that is a big piece of it for us, is to see it in every day, because math is joyful, and it can be so powerful when we recognize that, but it's not always, families don't always know how to do it. Teachers don't always know how to highlight it. So we're hoping to give some ideas of how you can do that by sharing what we do in our everyday lives.
Okay, so you said something about the apps are coming in, math and apps. I just had a conversation too with someone, and her daughter was learning math from an app, and then she ended up taking it away. How screens are becoming a part of math, and you highlighted it a little. Can you talk more about like what you're seeing, how it's impacting kids?
Yeah. So neither of us are currently in elementary school classrooms. So we don't have experience in that way. However, as parents and as upcoming teacher educators, we do hear from their field experiences how much kids are on apps now, particularly in certain school settings.
And in some cases, it's required, right?
Yeah.
Certain districts require X amount of time on the app. And I think that, not to interrupt you, but they can be powerful in the sense, and I think the message we hear is, well, it's at their level and it's differentiated to them. So yes, that is great. Like a teacher can't work one-on-one with 30 kids in a classroom, but the app can do that. But what those apps sometimes miss is fostering conceptual understanding. And when
Mm.
I say conceptual understanding, I mean building these foundational skills to help you understand what's actually happening so that you don't feel anxious when you see that math problem and forgot what are the steps? What am I carrying? What
Yeah.
am I doing? And so that can be missed. And then sometimes they emphasize speed,
Yeah, that was the other thing.
and that causes a lot of stress and anxiety. If you take something away today, you don't need to be fast to be good at math. Like that is a huge misconception. And I think that's something that we can see
Yeah.
adding to stress for kids. And so,
No, no, you're totally, I mean, that's a lot of the things I would have said, honestly. I think when we put them on apps too much, the other thing that we really are missing that we know from math education research might not have been in everyone's classrooms, but is so powerful for learnings is the conversations, right?
yes,
Kids having whole class conversations, small group conversations, partner conversations. In both of our classrooms, our kids were talking constantly during math class. Like that was just part of math class is they talked about their thinking and they heard from their peers. And when we're putting kids on apps, those conversations aren't happening, right? And they're also not seeing the multitude of different ways to solve the
yes,
problems that they get from actually working with other kids. And I know that's more on the school end than the home end, but similarly at home, we want to be having conversations with our kids about the mathematics that they're thinking about. And that doesn't mean you have to teach them the next step. It can just mean asking them questions. But if they're on that, I don't know, different math apps. I don't even know the math apps, to be honest with you. But if they're on the math app, they're not getting that chance to have a conversation with someone about the math that they're doing.
That's such a powerful point. The conversation is so incredibly valuable to learning
mhm,
and understanding divergent thinking, or just even understanding the students, like their way, or your child, their way of thinking. I remember when I was a teacher, I taught gifted education for a large part of my career, academically gifted. And lots of times, those students, I mean, like math for a lot of them is just like boom, 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 right?
yeah,
And they would do it. And I'm like, okay, but how did you do that? Making them slow down and
yes,
intentionally think about it, because that's what's going to transfer, right? Like if you understand how you got there, that's the transfer piece instead of I just have the right answer.
yes, yep,
And when you say that, it makes me think about another, big shift that we try to make is that focus in math on answers versus on the thinking, right? And the only focus that you're going to get when kids are in an app is on the answer and is the answer correct, which can really also build math anxiety, right?
mhm,
Because it's so much about, I absolutely must make sure I get the correct answer. And it's not about the journey they take to get there. It's not about the thinking. And it becomes much more pressure filled for kids versus like, okay, we're going to get to an answer. We can see if it's right. But what I'm really curious about is everything you're thinking about as you approach this work.
mhm.
I'm like sitting here thinking, okay, I'm old. But is are the math apps essentially like the timed math tests of yesteryear? You know what I mean? Have we just
Oh,
traded in one for the other?
that is one of my big fears. I will say not all math apps are of that nature. I think there is a difference between some that are better and some that are worse, but absolutely that's one of my fears is that, you know, most of us don't necessarily know what to look for when looking at these apps.
Right.
And the ratings, I don't know how much those mean because they may also be made by people who don't know. And I'm not saying this in a negative way about them. They just don't necessarily know what to look for, right? Um, and so, yeah, I think there's a big connection to time tests and drills and things that we know from research are harmful for kids.
Now my brain is like,
Yeah, same.
do you have, so dialogue, the limiting of dialogue is a big one, but are there other limitations of screens when it comes to supporting math learning?
I think another piece would be the feedback that you're getting from your teacher. So I know
Mm,
that apps can give you feedback, but that's not personalized to you as the learner. What do I know about you as a student in my class, and how am I gonna make it help you make a connection, knowing what I know about you, your interests, your previous learning experiences, things that are challenging for you. And I think that is certainly a limitation. for a lot of learners. And then I would say the feeling of intrinsic success, like I solved this problem, not I solved this problem, so now I get a star, or now I get 5 minutes of playing whatever on this app. Like, they're all different how they incentivize things. But um, that's another piece of math happiness, feeling that sense of accomplishment. I did something that was hard and I tried different strategies and I puzzled through it and I didn't give up. And I think that's also another potential limitation.
And that's a life thing too, right?
Yeah.
Because in math you have to persist.
Yes.
And if you persist and work hard, like then you get the reward, which is
Right.
the confidence and the like, I did it, like, which is going to help kids later on in life too, right? Because it's not just today, it's
Right.
the whole lifespan thing. I love this conversation. I'm like, my brain is just, I'm going to walk away and spend the rest of the afternoon just math thinking.
Love it.
Okay, so let's talk about math in real life, because that is what I see all the time from you and what I love so much. Could you talk about math happening everywhere? What does real life math look like when you're in the kitchen, on a walk, playing?
I mean, it can look like anything, right? So I don't want people to ever feel limited by where, like, if you're on a walk, it's this. If you can pull things in from elsewhere, please do. And it can really vary based on age. So you mentioned in the kitchen, I bake and cook with my kids a fair amount. They both happen to really like that stuff. And I have an almost 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. And so my 4-year-old math looks different than my 7-year-old, right? Now she's more secure in like her counting, but for a long time, a lot of it was just counting as we put scoops of flour in, right? But even we can extend beyond that with, all right, we have to do 4 scoops of flour. I put in 3. How many more do I have? Or we notice arrays, which just really quick definition is like rows and columns of things. So on a cookie sheet, when you're putting cookies down, that's a great opportunity for me to push my 7-year-old to be like, oh, how many rows? How many in each row? How many total? And that's getting into multiplicative thinking, right? Starting to think about multiplication. Thinking about things like that while they're in the kitchen. Oh, I want to do 3/4 cups of flour, but I don't have a 3/4 measuring cup. So, I can do 3/1/4 scoops. That's good fraction understanding. On walks, we did a shape hunt recently. You can look at the numbers on people's houses and talk about, what those represent. Is that a big number? Is that a small number? How does it compare with the number next to it? With really young ones, positional words, things like, oh, I put that on top of your book. The teddy bear is behind the couch. Those are really important precursor math skills as well. So obviously you can kind of count no matter what you do if you have kids in those ages, and we encourage you to count no matter what you do. If you're going up the stairs, count them, because the more of those experiences they get, the better. But even, mathematically with my older daughter, we'll be taking an elevator and we'll like start on third floor and be like, okay, we're going to the 11th floor. How many floors is it to get there? And we're just always kind of thinking about and asking and noticing these questions.
Just want to, piggyback with the counting. So I have a newly 3-year-old and then an almost 8-year-old. And so with my little guy, we count all the time. And so one thing that I was not an early childhood educator when I was in the classroom. So some of this was new learning for me in my doctorate program. So counting is not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so we have a lot of content on this, but there are the counting principles. And one is, yes, being able to say the numbers, in order, but this one-to-one correspondence. So it's the idea, if I have 5 blueberries in front of me, every time I touch or move one, I understand that that is one object. And a lot of littles, they don't have that yet. So you might see your littles count and they're like skipping one or they're counting one twice. And so when you're doing that counting, actually having them, like when he puts his toys away, we count each one that goes in. When we go up a step, we say each number. So he's seeing that each time we say a number, it is an object. And I think that's something I'd love parents of littles to take away, because you'll see numbers in places and opportunities to count and songs to count. Also important for learning that number sequence and how you say the numbers, but you don't always work on that one-to-one correspondence and recognizing one object goes with one number.
Mm-hmm. Those are all powerful examples. And I just keep thinking about, we tell parents of littles, like your baby comes out, talk to your baby all
Yes.
the time. Read to your baby all the time. You know, like start reading as soon as you've got them in your hands, start reading. And what you're highlighting is so much the talk to your child all the time, right? Like don't let it stop, and just naturally draw in the normal everyday math concepts that are there, like the fractions, the one-to-one correspondence, all of it. Those are normal interactions.
Yep.
You don't have to go and love math, right? Be a math lover. You can just be like, okay, math is a part of life. Like, what powerful examples.
When you're saying that, like that's one of the things that we highlight is that you hear so much about supporting early literacy skills, and that's important. Not telling anybody not to do that. You do not hear about supporting early math skills, and yet research actually shows that early math skills are a stronger predictor of mathematics ability in grade 3, but also reading ability in grade 3, which is kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. So there's so much that is not actually hard for us to do with kids when they're little, that we can just be gently bringing in to support them. And I know we have like some blog posts and things like that, but as Erin said, just the counting, but counting with meaning, not just like making them rote count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 all the time. Doing it with meaning, attaching it to those things is really important for kids.
Yeah, and we understand families, like to going back to what we said at the start, this is what we want to share with families. We want families to know how to do this because we don't feel families are given the information, are equipped, and it's nothing they're doing wrong. It's just not part of how we prepare I mean, there's not a whole lot on how to be a parent. You're kind of like, here's the baby, good luck, right? But everyone knows to read to their kid. Everybody hears that, but you're not necessarily told how to do math and how to support that. And so we just really want to help parents do what we know they could do to be helpful.
Mm-hmm. So how can parents, you both decided to pursue a math path.
Yes.
If parents aren't pursuing that math path, and maybe they're coming from the like, I don't like math philosophy, how can they start noticing math? Because some of it I feel like is just innate. You're doing a recipe, you're just measuring things out, you're counting, whatever. How can they start noticing it intentionally as a math opportunity without, okay, now's the teaching moment, right? Like, how can they do that?
I have an easy, we've been talking about literacy. So I think an easy, accessible way for families to start is finding math in storybooks that they're reading with their children already. And so we have a blog post about this, a handout families can find, but there's some suggestions like find the numbers within the story. What do they mean? Why is that number there? And not just like math specific books, right? Like I know we have books with numbers and counting, but you can look for sizes and amounts on the page. What's happening? Talk about that, compare them. Notice patterns or recognition that's like recognizing patterns. So 5 monkeys were on the bed, then there's 4, then there's 3, then there's 2. What's happening? What is happening each time that number changes? Spatial relationships. So talking, especially with young kids, I know Liz mentioned like positional words. What's on top of the table? What's underneath? What's beside? So those are some easy, accessible ways. If you're feeling like, I have no idea where to start, I think that's a great spot for families to do it. And you're probably already creating that time and space to read with your child. You can just build it right into what you're doing.
I will also say, I think it can feel really overwhelming when you're starting because you're not used to looking for math, right?
Yeah.
So starting there, or I think we have the blog post is about like math at dinner or something like that, but that it doesn't have to be dinner. It could be anytime. And it gives some examples for adults on like, okay, here's natural places to bring it in. And I think once you get going doing it, you're going to start noticing in so many places where there's mathematics. And the really cool thing is that once you do it regularly, your kid's going to start noticing as well. It's like they just start naturally bringing it out and seeing where mathematics is happening. If it just becomes normalized for them, right? So then you're not even doing all the work, right? Like they're starting to do some of the work for you.
That's yeah, we don't need to do that. We don't need to overwhelm parents anymore.
Yes, we are not trying to give a million more tasks. That's why we try to think about math, not as a sit down with your kid. We could come up with a program of sit down with your kid for 20 minutes each day to help support them in their math, but we don't want it to be that because we are also working parents and we know how busy it is, and there's homework from school and there's swim class and everything else. And so that's why we try to come up with things that you can just naturally tuck in. Like we do a Math Thinking Monday question every Monday for families. And that one isn't necessarily already embedded in something they're doing, but they're meant to be short and simple, the type of thing you could ask while waiting in the car at pickup for an older sibling, or while a sibling does swim class, or you're at the table, or even tuck in at bedtime. Just kind of little ways to build math. And you don't have to do it on Monday. You can do it any night throughout the week.
I love that in particular because I talk a lot about like having a back pocket activity, right? Like something
Yes.
you can pull out of your pocket and just have it. And like those math thinking questions or whatever, like that is that, right?
Yes.
Like you just pull it out and you're like, okay, let's think about this.
And in my busyness, I forget to do it. So my 7-year-old will be like, Mom, you haven't given me a Math Thinking Monday question yet this week.
He's calling you out.
Oh yeah, she will.
Well, it's funny, like Liz and I have both, like we've struggled with it. It's like my suggestion to families, like the reason why I like starting with a book is it's part of your routine. If you want to do this, think of a time and be intentional with it. So either like schedule it in your phone or just know like, oh, I walk to pick on this day, we walk home from school. I'm going to notice on that walk home, or I'm going to do it then, because I think we all have so many things we're already trying to think about and stay mindful and be present and navigate. That it's just hard. So finding being intentional at first, I think
I need
really,
to do that.
really help before, and then it does become habit, but we have to be intentional before it becomes that habit.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you guys have so many resources as well. So parents don't initially have to think of them, right? Like you talked about,
really
like,
don't.
Like it will become part of your thinking eventually, but it doesn't have to start that way. Just go grab some resources, start there, and then notice what happens almost.
Yeah, we want to help you. We're just teachers that can't help. That's teachers, right? They just want to help. We just want to help.
So what's one myth about math you wish parents would stop believing?
Can we each get one?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
You can go first. I mean, also, we both will agree with each other. Let's be clear.
I'm going to say speed. And that just goes back to like, that creates so much math anxiety. I can picture in the classroom, if you played a game like Around the World, where you would like have to compete with your classmates to try and go further around the circle, and whoever said the answer fastest got to move, or those time tests. Maybe you were really good at those time tests, but still there was like this pressure and anxiety, like I got to get this done in this amount of time. That is not what we want families to. You do not have to be fast to be good at math. Nope. And sometimes if you are just trying to be fast and memorize, you are missing the beauty, the joy, the patterns, like all of the things that bring it together and make it wonderful.
Yeah. I think it's related to the speed piece, but the other piece is memorization. I think there's this huge emphasis on memorize, memorize, memorize. And yes, it is valuable to know certain things from memory. And I know this is like a really minute difference, but I think it's an important one. To me, memorization is when I'm giving my kids flashcards and I expect them to just instantly see 4 times 7 and know that equals 28, right? Versus knowing from memory, they can explain why 4 times 8 equals 4 times 7, sorry, equals 28. They could put a situation to go with it. I have 4 baskets of 7 apples each, right? They could draw a picture to go with it. They could use it to help themselves solve 4 times 70. When I really know that from memory and I understand it, I can use it for lots more mathematical situations, which is really critical. We talk about looking for and making use of structure. That's doing that. If all I have is this memorized tiny nugget of information, it sticks with 4 times 7, and that's all that it gives me. And guess what? The calculator on my phone can also give me the answer for 4 times 7.
Yeah. And if you memorized it and you forgot,
you have a way to get back there.
Like I'm thinking of my daughter who knows 2 times 7, and then she like that's how she'll do it. She like keeps doing 2s and then she'll double it. I'm like, we got to move on past that. But like she has another strategy, right? If you have different ways, then it doesn't matter that you forgot the memorized answer.
Yeah. And there's lots of great ways to get at your multiplication facts without having to just blindly memorize them. Sometimes adults will be like, oh yeah, my kid, I got them to memorize their times tables in first grade. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't see the point in that. I honestly think it might do more harm than good. If they are not understanding the multiplication, then they're going to be less likely to engage with the multiplication when they're really doing it, because they're going to be like, well, I already know the answer, so it doesn't matter. But the answer is not what's really the most important here.
Mm-hmm. And I think that I'm going to piggyback back off of you with that. That is a false sense of confidence also too, right? So the parents feeling super, my kid in first grade knows this, kid is probably receiving that confidence and taking it on. And then they get to where math is harder, more challenging. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
and all of a sudden they're like taken aback, like, but I thought I was good. I thought I was good at math.
Yeah.
Because that little nugget of memorization only takes you so far, right?
Yeah.
And then you can really see issues with that kind of threatening their sense of who they are. And then you may even, I mean, I might be spiraling here, but you can see some behavior challenges because they're like, well, I'm just going to act like I don't want to do it because I don't know what to do, right? We've all been teachers. We've all seen that in the class.
Yeah.
So let's dive down that like math confidence strand. Because personally, I think that's where a lot of I don't like math comes from, is math confidence.
Sure. Yes.
How does a family's attitude toward math shape the confidence of their children or their willingness to explore or try?
So there is research that actually says it's very impactful. And I'm not saying this to make anyone feel bad about anything they've said or done, because again, probably not good things were done to you mathematically if you feel that way. But there is research that shows, when parents, particularly if there's a mom, express, oh, I was never good at math. Math's just not my thing. Maybe even go ask your dad or something like that. We actually see there's a direct impact, not only on kids' mindset for math, but also their achievement. So we really want to be careful about what we're expressing to our kids when it comes to math. I think it's completely fine and even good to say, oh, I'm not sure about how to solve this problem. I'm going to need to think about it more, or maybe we can explore it together. You don't need to know everything for math, but what we do want to be really cautious of is speaking negatively, not just about math, but negatively about ourselves when it comes to math. Because our kids really start to take that in. It also gives them the message of, oh, it's okay to say you're not a math person. It's okay to just not be good at math. And that's not a message we want any kids to have, because math is a huge gatekeeper area. And not that they necessarily need the specific opportunities that math allows, but we don't want to cut them off from those opportunities, right when they're in elementary school. So yeah, I think being really conscious of how we speak about math and how we speak about ourselves as doers of mathematics is really critical.
And I think just saying like I'm not a math person perpetuates the misbelief that some people are and some people aren't. And as Liz mentioned earlier, we are truly all innately born mathematical thinkers. And then some of it just gets taught out of us, unfortunately. Like when our teachers are doing their best, truly, and doing what the best with what they know, trying to help us, we focus on speed and memorization, and we take that joy and the beauty of math, unfortunately, out.
I wonder if parents who think they're not a math person, right? Yeah. Or have that mentality, if they started with some of the activities you suggest, the things that are in our everyday world, and they like, do they then realize they actually are, right? Like, yeah. Oh, that's math? I didn't think of that as math. Like,
that would be ideal. I mean, not yet in that situation, but we both teach people becoming teachers, right? And one of the most amazing things that we get to see with a lot of those students is that they may come into our class hating math. And then by the end, as I said, they have 3 classes. By the end of it, many of them are like, I like math now. What I was doing, I wasn't doing math, or I didn't understand math before. Well, ours do pick minors still, but they pick them earlier before they get into the teacher ed really core program. And I've had so many be like, man, why do we have to pick minors already? Now I want to switch to math. Because they truly shift their relationship with it. And I think when we give the opportunity to approach math in an understanding, joy-based way, it really does impact how so many people experience it. So perhaps if you have children and you currently are like, I hate math, I'm not a math person, maybe you could try to throw out the old definition of math. Be like, that thing I did in school, we're going to call that school math.
Yeah.
And I'm going to approach what's happening with my child as a completely different thing, and kind of give it a blank slate and see how I feel about it from there, and not let perhaps some even math trauma from earlier in my life not interfere with how I'm going to experience it now and how I'm going to support my child in
Mhm.
experiencing it.
Mhm. So I know you talked about you have your like Monday question, you have a blog posts with
Yes.
S that give ideas. Are there some practical tips? So at least maybe some people could start somewhere. Do you have some practical daily tips? Like they're listening and they're like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to start here without having to go get another resource at this time. Like I'm going to start here.
So for those of you starting, I'm going to encourage you to have what's called a growth mindset. I think that even just having that mental awareness that I'm approaching this with what's called a growth mindset. And if you haven't heard that, you can Google it. I'm sure lots will come up, but it's just this belief of like our brains are malleable and they truly do change. And so what you have learned in the past or your beliefs about yourself are not necessary, they're not set. And so instead of saying I can't do this or I'm not good at this, I'm gonna like add a yet to the end of that. I'm not good at this yet. I know that if I do these things, my brain can change. And so first of all, kudos to those the parents out there. Applaud you for trying to do something different and have a different experience for your children. So I think like emphasizing that and then recognizing that you might make some mistakes along the way. And that's where I know this as an educator. I know the research. I still hate making mistakes, like because it's just internalized, right? Like I hate it, but it is a crucial part of the learning process. So for you as the parent, you're going to make some mistakes. That's okay. But your child is also going to make some mistakes learning math. And I encourage those parents to celebrate those mistakes and be like, oh, that is helping us get from point A to point B. They're a crucial part of the learning process. I love it when like my kids will say that to me. Like I'll be like, oh, and they'll be like, Mom, remember, making mistakes is important. So I know those aren't necessarily like an action step, but I think like getting in the right mindset first to start is really important for those parents. Just want to applaud them, or I should say families, for the families that are starting out with this.
So to jump on that, but then also give another action step. I think the mistakes thing, people, and we see this with our teachers too, they don't want to make mistakes in front of the kids. They're helping with the math homework and they're like, I don't know how to do it, how the teacher said to do it. So I don't like want to help with it, or I want to just show you the way I did it. Model not understanding for your kid. That is such a powerful thing to model. I don't think I understand this. I really need to problem solve through this. Is there a picture I can draw to help myself? You know, should I try something that's like a version of this that feels maybe a little easier? Model how you overcome the challenge. It is not bad for our kids to see us struggling. That is so powerful for them. And then the other, like, do all the mindset stuff, please don't skip that. The other thing, if you want to be more like technically officially mathematical, it really depends a little on age level. So if you're working with the really little ones, look for opportunities to count with meaning, right? Like Erin was talking about earlier in the podcast. If your kids are ready to start thinking about addition and subtraction, and I would say even kids as young as 3 or 4 can start thinking about that. I'm going to give a really big caveat that I'm not talking about writing 3 plus 4. Please don't do that with kids that age. I'm talking about I give my daughter 3 blueberries and then I say, I'm going to give you 2 more. And I'm actually physically doing this.
Yeah.
And I say, how many do you have now? What if I take away one of your blueberries? How many do you have now? And she loves problems like that. She will ask me to do problems like that. She is turning 4 soon. I'm keeping all her problems under like 8 max total. And when I was originally doing it with her, everything was under 5. But so think about kind of your kid's age, what they might work on, and start just noticing it. My older daughter, I try to notice opportunities for her to like split things apart. Like if we're having rolls for breakfast, there's 8 rolls, there's 4 people in my family. How many rolls does every person get? You know? So pick one thing to focus on for a week: addition, subtraction, multiplication, but everything without the simples. And just start looking, where do I notice that math happening? Because you are going to see it happening in your real life if you start looking for it.
And I'll just add, if you're listening, you're like, I don't, that even feels too overwhelming. I would say when you're having a meal together, when you're walking together, just say, let's think about how we use math today. Can you think of an example of how you use math today?
Put it on the kids.
And have them share it and then reflect too. Just, I'm sure you like, oh, I have to leave the house at 8. It's 7:40. How much more time? You don't have to talk about, oh, I did, how you computed the answer, but just helping to bring an awareness and notice, I think, is a great way for families to get started.
Yeah.
Simple. That's super simple, easy. Yep. So if families could remember one mindset shift about math And if you both need to answer this separately, you can do that too. What would that be?
Do you want to,
It's up to you.
okay. I really want everyone to know the big shift is math is for everyone. Like math truly is for everyone. And there are new approaches to learning math. And I think there's been a lot of negativity around that, like new math, da 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 da. It really does. So if you have a child who's like in a school age child who is learning new math, it truly is designed to help them build what I mentioned before, conceptual understanding where they know what's happening and it will help them. So even if it feels uncomfortable and just different, yes, just know that it's not bad. So I guess that's two things. Sorry. Everyone really is a math person and new math isn't bad. So sorry.
So I mean, I think this goes with math is for everyone, but it's never too late to take a new approach, right?
Mm.
So you can have hated math your entire life, but you can say, today I'm going to take all that math hate and I'm going to put it in this little bucket of school math and I'm going to try it. I'm going to try taking a new approach with this new, you can call it something else. I don't know what you want to call it besides math. I don't have a great word for you coming up in my head, but I'm going to think of this as something else. And even if your child is 9 or 10 or something like that, and they've unfortunately gone down this path where they have that math anxiety, it's not too late for you to shift how you're talking about it. I mean, if they're at that age, you can have a conversation, be like, I've said some not great things about myself and math in front of you, and I'm realizing now, like, that's not true. I am a math person. I didn't always feel successful in school math, and I think that's because of some different reasons, but I don't want that to be true for you. I want you to realize you're a math person.
That's good too, for letting your kids know that school math may not feel great for them either,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. If school math is not feeling great for them, try to maybe separate it out from what mathematics really is. Because what can happen in the classrooms can vary a lot. I think there's been actually a lot of positives with new math, as Erin was saying. Those are towards conceptual understanding, but those can be implemented very differently across school, across district, across curriculum. And so, I think that helping kids understand that math is bigger than just what they're doing in the workbook at school is really important, particularly if they haven't felt successful in that workbook.
Well, ladies, do you have anything else that you feel like we didn't talk about, didn't cover? You want to just get out there?
I can't
think
of anything.
Yeah, all the things that I'd want to highlight for families. Like I mentioned, we love to help. We're here to help. So feel free to reach out if you are starting this journey and you're like, I don't know what to do or where to start. Please, we want to help you. We know it can feel like a lot, and that's part of why we're doing what we're doing, is because we don't think you should have to get a PhD to be able to help your kids with math. Like that's not what we want for families.
Yeah.
So they can find you on Instagram, right?
Yes. Instagram, Math Happiness Project, YouTube, Math Happiness Project.
And then we also have a website with blogs and also a lot of free activities and things to download. That's just mathhappinessproject.com.
Yep.
And so there's lots on there as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Here's to creating more moments that stick. Bye, friends.